Turin, Piedmontese. Turin, pronounced Tyrin, Lombard. Turi, Latin. Augusta Taurinorum, is a city and an important business and cultural center in northern Italy, capital of the Piedmont region. Located mainly on the left bank of the Po River, in front of Susa Valley and surrounded by the Western Alpine Arch. The population of the city proper is 911,823, while the population of the urban area is estimated by Eurostat to be 1.7 million inhabitants. The Turin metropolitan area is estimated by the OECD to have a population of 2.2 million. The city has a rich culture and history, and is known for its numerous art galleries, restaurants, churches, palaces, opera houses, piazzas, parks, gardens, theaters, libraries, museums and other venues. Turin is well known for its Renaissance, Baroque, Rococo, Neoclassical, and Art Nouveau architecture. Much of the city's public squares, castles, gardens and elegant palazzi such as Palazzo Madama were built in the 16th and 18th century. After the capital of the Duchy of Savoy was moved to Turin from Chambéry as part of the urban expansion. Turin is sometimes called the cradle of Italian liberty, for having been the birthplace and home of notable politicians and people who contributed to the Risorgimento, such as Cavour. The city currently hosts some of Italy's best universities, colleges, academies, lycea and gymnasia, such as the 6th-century-old University of Turin and the Turin Polytechnic. Prestigious and important museums, such as the Museo Egizio and the Mole Antonelliana, are also found in the city. Turin's several monuments and sites make it one of the world's top 250 tourist destinations, and the 10th most visited city in Italy in 2008. The city used to be a major European political center, being Italy's first capital city in 1861 and being home to the House of Savoy, Italy's royal family. Even though much of its political significance and importance had been lost by World War II, it became a major European crossroad for industry, commerce and trade, and currently is one of Italy's main industrial centers, being part of the famous Industrial Triangle. Along with Milan and Genoa, Turin is ranked third in Italy, after Milan and Rome, for economic strength. Turin is also home to much of the Italian automotive industry. Turin is well known as the home of the Shroud of Turin, the football teams Juventus FC, and Torino FC, the headquarters of automobile manufacturers Fiat, Lancia and Alfa Romeo, Iveco, and as host of the 2006 Winter Olympics and, in the same year, the 37th Chess Olympiad. Several international space station modules, such as Harmony and Columbus, were also manufactured in Turin. It was the capital of the Duchy of Savoy from 1563, then of the Kingdom of Sardinia ruled by the Royal House of Savoy, and finally the first capital of the unified Italy. It is often referred to as the capital of the Alps. Other popular epithets are the automobile capital of Italy and the Detroit of Italy. As it is the home of Fiat in Italy, it is also dubbed La Capitale Sarboda. History. Ancient origins. The Turini were an ancient Celto-Ligurian Alpine people, who occupied the upper valley of the Po River, in the center of modern Piedmont. In 218 BC, they were attacked by Hannibal since his allies were the Insubres. The Turini and the Insubres had a long-standing feud. Their chief town was captured by Hannibal's forces after a 3-day siege. As a people they are rarely mentioned in history. It is believed that a Roman colony was established in 27 BC under the name of Castra Taurinorum and afterwards Julia Augusta Taurinorum. Both Livy and Strabo mention the Taurinis country as including one of the passes of the Alps, which points to a wider use of the name in earlier times. The Taurini tribe is the origin of the city of Turin. Celtic in origin, they joined the Ligurian tribes peacefully. The city's symbol and coat of arms is the rampant bull. Torino in Italian literally means bull, and in Greek Taurus means bull. The Salasser, another Celtic Italian tribe, was also part of the Piedmont area, which was eventually destroyed by the Romans. Otherwise the word «tor» means «mountain» in Celtic and defines the Torini as mountain dwellers. On the Brick San Vito, a hill near Pesata, were found the ruins of an ancient Torini settlement. Such settlements were usually built on high or mountaintops. The language of the Piedmont region, Piedmontese, still contains many words of Celtic origin to this day and is more than a dialect. It is indeed a separate language spoken by the people of Turin and the Piedmont region, giving them a unique sense of identity and affinity with their heritage. Roman times in the 1st century BC, probably 28 BC, the Romans created a military camp, later dedicated to Augustus. The typical Roman street grid can still be seen in the modern city, especially in the neighborhood known as the Quadrilatero Romano. Via Garibaldi traces the exact path of the Roman city's decumanus, which began at the Porta Decumana, later incorporated into the Castello or Palazzo Madama. The Porta Palatina, on the north side of the current city centre, is still preserved in a park near the cathedral. Remains of the Roman period theatre are preserved in the area of the Manica Nuova. Turin reached about 5,000 inhabitants at the time, all living inside the high city walls. Middle Ages. After the fall of the Roman Empire, the town was conquered by the Heruli, the Ostrogoths, the Byzantines, the Lombards, then the Franks of Charlemagne. The Conte di Torino was founded in the 940s and was held by the Ardwinic dynasty until 1050. After the marriage of Adelaide of Susa with Humbert Biancalmano's son Otto, the family of the Counts of Savoy gained control. While the title of Count was held by the bishop as Count of Turin, it was ruled as a prince-bishopric by the bishops. In 1230 to 1235 it was a lordship under the Marquis of Montferrat, styled Lord of Turin. At the end of the 13th century, when it was annexed to the Duchy of Savoy, the city already had 20,000 inhabitants. Many of the gardens and palaces were built in the 15th century when the city was redesigned. The University of Turin was also founded during this period. Early modern Emanuel Philibert, also known under the nickname of Ironhead, made Turin the capital of the Duchy of Savoy in 1563. Piazza Reale and Via Nuova were added along with the first enlargement of the walls. In the first half of the 17th century, in the same period the Palazzo Reale was also built. In the second half of that century, a second enlargement of the walls was planned and executed, with the building of the arcaded Via Po, connecting Piazza Castello with the bridge on the Po through the regular street grid. In 1706, during the Battle of Turin, the French besieged the city for 117 days without conquering it. By the Treaty of Utrecht, the Duchy of Savoy acquired part of the former Duchy of Milan, including Turin, and the architect Filippo Uvara began a major redesign of the city. Now the capital of a European kingdom, Turin had about 90,000 inhabitants at the time. Late modern and contemporary Turin, like the rest of Piedmont, was annexed by the French Empire in 1802. The city thus became the seat of the prefecture of Po department until the fall of Napoleon in 1814, when the Kingdom of Piedmont Sardinia was restored with Turin as its capital. In the following decades, the Kingdom of Piedmont Sardinia led the struggle towards the unification of Italy. In 1861, Turin became the capital of the newly proclaimed United Kingdom of Italy until 1865, when the capital was moved to Florence and then to Rome after the conquest of the Papal States in 1870. In 1871, the Frejus Tunnel was opened, making Turin an important communication node between Italy and France. The city in that period had 250,000 inhabitants. Some of the most iconic landmarks of the city, like the Mole Antonelliana, the Egyptian Museum, the Gran Madeddio Church and Piazza Vittorio Veneto, were built in this period. The late 1800s were also a period of rapid industrialization, especially in the automotive sector. In 1899 Fiat was established in the city, followed by Lancia in 1906. The Universal Exposition held in Turin in 1902 is often regarded as the pinnacle of Art Nouveau design, and the city hosted the same event in 1911. By this time, Turin had grown to 430,000 inhabitants. After the Great War, harsh conditions brought a wave of strikes and workers' protests. In 1920 the Lingato Fiat factory was occupied. The fascist regime put an end to the social unrest, banning trade unions and jailing socialist leaders, notably Antonio Gramsci. On the other hand, Benito Mussolini largely subsidized the automotive industry, to provide vehicles to the army. Turin was then a target of Allied strategic bombing during World War II, being heavily damaged in its industrial areas by the air raids. The Allies' campaign in Italy started off from the south and slowly moved northwards in the following 2 years, leaving the northern regions occupied by Germans and collaborationist forces for about a couple of years. During the Allied drive to liberate northern Italy, the Allied High Command in Italy realized that they only had a slight advantage over the German army in the region. As a result, British Field Marshal Alexander made a risky decision to include help from the French 27th Alpine Division or the French Alpine Army. The French 27th Division was stationed along the border between France and Italy in order to prevent the Germans from threatening the French Riviera. However, the inhabitants of the Val d'Aosta region of northwest Italy have historical links to France and the French government seeking revenge for the invasion from fascist Italy in 1940, as well as historical links wished to annex all of the territory west of Turin. The French offense from the Alps went from being a victory into becoming a rout of the German army in the region west of Turin, and the French army invaded much deeper into northwest Italy than anyone expected. The result of the French offensive meant that French troops reached Turin from the west while the units of the Brazilian expeditionary arrived in Turin from the east. As a result of both armies arriving in the region of Turin, there was a great deal of confusion and intermingling, as well as a political dispute at Allied headquarters. Turin was not captured by the Allies until the end of Spring Offensive of 1945. By the time the vanguard of the armored reconnaissance units of Brazilian Expeditionary Force reached the city, it was already freed by the Italian partisans that had begun revolting against the Germans on the 25th of April 1945. Days later, troops from the U.S. Army's 1st Armored and 92nd Infantry Divisions came to substitute the Brazilians. In the post-war years, Turin was rapidly rebuilt. The city's automotive industry played a pivotal role in the Italian economic miracle of the 1950s and 1960s, attracting hundreds of thousands of immigrants to the city, particularly from the rural southern regions of Italy. The number of immigrants was so big that Turin was said to be the third southern Italian city after Naples and Palermo. The population soon reached 1 million in 1960 and peaked at almost 1.2 million in 1971. The exceptional growth gains of the city gained it the nickname of the automobile capital of Italy and the Detroit of Italy. In the 1970s and 1980s, the oil and automotive industry crisis severely hit the city, and its population began to sharply decline, losing more than one-fourth of its total in 30 years. The long population decline of the city has begun to reverse itself only in recent years, as the population grew from 865,000 to slightly over 900,000 by the end of the century. In 2006, Turin hosted the Winter Olympic Games. Geography: Turin is located in northwest Italy. It is surrounded on the western and northern front by the Alps and on the eastern front by a high hill that is the natural continuation of the hills of Monferrato. 4 major rivers pass through the city: the Po and 3 of its tributaries, the Dora Riparia, the Stura di Lanzo and the Sangon. Climate: Turin is located in the border of the humid subtropical climate and oceanic climate zones. This is in contrast to the Mediterranean climate characteristic of the coast of Italy. Winters are moderately cold but dry, summers are mild in the hills and quite hot in the plains. Rain falls mostly during spring and autumn, during the hottest months. Otherwise, rains are less frequent but heavier. During the winter and autumn months, banks of fog, which are sometimes very thick, form in the plains but rarely on the city because of its location at the end of the Susa Valley. Its position on the east side of the Alps makes the weather drier than on the west side, because of the fohn wind effect. The highest temperature ever recorded was 37.1 degrees Celsius, while the lowest was -21.8 degrees Celsius. Administration: Turin is split up into 10 boroughs, locally called circoscrizioni. These do not necessarily correspond to the historical districts of the city, which are rather called quartieri, rioni, borghi, borgate or zone. The following list enumerates the present-day boroughs and today's location of the historical districts inside them. Circoscrizione 1. Centro, Crocetta. Circoscrizione 2. Santa Rita, Mirafiori Nord. Circoscrizione 3. San Paolo, Senisia, Pozzo Strada, CIT Turin, Borgatelesna. Circoscrizione 4. San Donato, Campidoglio, Parella. Circoscrizione 5. Borgo Vittoria, Madonna di Campagna, Lucento, Vallet. Circoscrizione 6. Barriera di Milano, Regia Parco, Barca, Bertola, Falcera, Ribodeno, Villareto. Circoscrizione 7. Aurora, Banchiglia, Sassi, Madonna del Pilan. Circoscrizione 8. San Salvario, Cavoretta, Borgo Po. Circoscrizione 9. Nizza Milifonti, Lingato, Philadelphia. Circoscrizione 10. Mirafiori Sud. The Mayor of Turin is directly elected every 5 years. Piero Fassino, the current mayor, belongs to the centre-left coalition. Name of the mayor: Piero Fassino. Date of election: the 16th of May 2011. Party: Democratic Party. Turin City Council is composed of 50 members.